Its Reform UK says it is not a protest movement, not a pressure group, and not a personality cult. Instead, it describes itself as a serious political force with a serious governing document. Its manifesto is not branded as a wish list, it is branded as a contract. That choice of language is deliberate. A contract implies obligation. It implies delivery. And delivery depends on one thing above all else: the numbers. Reform UK's manifesto, titled Our Contract with You, promises a fundamental reshaping of the British state. Lower taxes, tighter borders, cheaper energy, shorter NHS waiting lists, more police, a smaller, more efficient government. These are not modest proposals. They are structural changes. So the central question is unavoidable. Do the numbers actually add up? Let us start with what the manifesto is promising. Reform proposes raising the income tax, personal allowance to £20,000. That would remove millions of people from paying income tax altogether. It proposes cutting stamp duty on most homes, reducing inheritance tax, and lowering corporation tax to attract investment and growth. On immigration, the manifesto takes a hard line. Non-essential legal migration would be frozen. Illegal channel crossings would be deterred through returns and enforcement. The argument is that lower population pressure would ease housing demand, reduce strain on the NHS, and cut welfare costs. On energy, reform breaks sharply from the current consensus. Net zero targets would be scrapped. Subsidies for renewables would be reduced or removed. Domestic oil, gas, and nuclear power would be prioritized. The stated goal is energy security and lower bills. At the same time, the manifesto promises improved public services, shorter NHS waiting lists, more police on the streets, tougher sentencing, a welfare system that rewards work. Crucially, reform says all of this is fully funded. According to the manifesto, the money comes from several sources: cutting waste across government, reducing the cost of net zero policies, lowering migration-related spending, and boosting economic growth through tax cuts and deregulation. On paper, the tables balance, but paper is not reality. This is where independent scrutiny matters. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has examined the proposals and raised serious doubts. Its assessment is not ideological, it is arithmetic. The IFS argues that the cost of reform's tax cuts is significantly higher than the manifesto suggests. Efficiency savings are assumed to be rapid and frictionless. In practice, they rarely are. Every government promises to cut waste. Few ever find it at the scale required. Immigration reductions may lower long-term pressure on services, but they do not generate immediate fiscal windfalls. Scrapping green subsidies may save money in one area, but costs often reappear elsewhere through infrastructure needs, borrowing, or delayed investment. In simple terms, the numbers only work if everything goes right. Growth must rise quickly, savings must appear immediately, and there must be no unintended consequences. Governments do not operate in best-case scenarios. That does not mean the manifesto is unserious. In fact, one of its strengths is clarity. Reform is explicit about its priorities. It accepts trade-offs. It does not pretend that everyone can win at the same time. That honesty resonates with voters who feel managed rather than spoken to. Raising the tax-free allowance would genuinely help low earners. Cutting stamp duty could unlock housing mobility. Questioning net zero reflects growing public concern about energy costs and industrial decline. On immigration, reform articulates frustrations that other parties often soften or avoid. Politically, that clarity is powerful, but clarity is not the same as credibility. The manifesto relies on optimistic assumptions stacked together. If growth disappoints, if savings fall short, or if reforms take longer than planned, the gap opens quickly. That raises a deeper question. Is this a blueprint for government or a lever to shift the debate? Nigel Farage has built his career by forcing issues onto the political agenda rather than managing departments. Reform may see its manifesto not as a final governing plan, but as a pressure document designed to pull other parties in its direction. If that is the goal, it is working. Immigration, energy policy, tax burdens, and state efficiency are now unavoidable topics. But if Reform wants to be seen as a party of government, it will eventually have to confront the arithmetic more directly. It will need to explain which promises bend if the numbers refuse to cooperate. So where does this leave us? With Reform UK's manifesto is bold, it is coherent, and it is politically disruptive, but financially it is a gamble. It does not yet prove Reform can govern, it does prove it is changing the conversation. And in British politics, changing the conversation is often the first step to changing everything.